You keep looking for the missing secret, the one habit that will finally make you consistent. You think it's a morning routine, a perfect schedule, a special mindset. But Musashi would have called that what it is: decoration, the kind that looks impressive until pressure arrives. The one practice he never skipped wasn't glamorous. It was repetitive, quiet, almost insulting in its simplicity. And that's exactly why it changed everything. You want the results of a disciplined mind, but you want them without the humiliation of repetition. You want mastery without having to meet yourself at your weakest point every day and still show up. That's the real barrier, not talent, not time, your unwillingness to repeat what feels too basic. Let me introduce you to a word that's easy to misunderstand. Keiko. It's hot. It's zeta. People translate it as practice, but it's deeper than that. Keiko means returning to the old, revisiting fundamentals until the body understands what the mind can't explain. It's not performance, it's polishing. It's the quiet work you do when no one is watching, so that when everyone is watching, you don't need to think. This is where Musashi enters without romance. Not as a myth, but as a man who built his edge through a kind of devotion most people can't tolerate. Daily fundamental training, even when it felt pointless, even when he was tired, even when he was alone. And before you ask, what exactly was the one practice, I'm going to make you earn it, because Musashi would have. First, you need to understand why you keep failing at consistency. You don't fail because you're lazy. You fail because you're emotionally attached to being good immediately. You want the identity of a disciplined person, but you can't stand the early evidence that you're not one yet. So you change methods. You switch plans, you buy new tools, you restart on Mondays, you call it optimizing. But what you're really doing is avoiding the only thing that actually works: repetition. There's a personality type I've seen again and again, the one that wants advanced strategies because basics feel beneath them. Yuki is that person. Yuki isn't stupid. He's sharp, he's sensitive, he's hungry. But he carries a quiet fear. If he repeats basics and still doesn't improve, then maybe he's not special. So he avoids repetition and tells himself he's exploring. And the result is predictable. His skill stays shallow. His confidence stays dependent on mood. And when pressure hits, he collapses into hesitation. Musashi would have looked at Yuki and said, gently but mercilessly, "You are training your ability to quit." Now listen carefully. Musashi's one practice wasn't merely swinging a sword as an aesthetic ritual. It was something more universal: suburi, basic cuts, basic swings, done again, done clean, done with attention, done even when there was no immediate reward. Suburi is the foundation of sword arts for a reason. It is the act of drilling the simplest movement until it becomes part of your structure, your stance, your grip, your breath, your timing. Not flashy, not impressive, but it creates a body that obeys. And that's what Musashi never skipped, not because he enjoyed it. Because he understood something you keep forgetting: under stress, you don't rise to your dreams. You fall to your training. When you're tired, you don't suddenly become disciplined. You become whatever you rehearsed. So Musashi rehearsed fundamentals until fundamentals became him. What's powerful about this is that suburi is not really about swords. It's a model for any skill, any identity, any kind of personal transformation. You can replace suburi with writing sentences, making sales calls, practicing scales, running intervals, studying a language, training your voice, learning to code. The pattern stays the same. You pick one fundamental. You repeat it daily. You make it unskippable. You let it shape you. Now, here's where Yuki challenges Musashi, and it's the same challenge you're feeling right now. Yuki says, "But isn't this too small? Too basic? I want something that changes everything." Musashi answers, "Then do the small thing until it changes you." Yuki says, "But what if I do it and I still fail?" Musashi answers, "Then you fail with honor, and you continue." You might think that's harsh. It is. but it's also the only path that doesn't depend on luck. Because here is the hidden problem with your modern self-improvement mindset. You chase motivation instead of building a mechanism. Motivation is weather. A mechanism is climate. Musashi built climate. Let's make this practical, because if this stays inspirational, it will die in your head like every other video you've consumed. Your version of suburi is what I'll call the one practice, one fundamental action that represents your craft. One action you can do even on your worst day. One action that is so basic your ego will hate it. And because your ego hates it, it's perfect. If you're a writer, your one practice is 200 words handwritten or typed, no editing allowed. If you're building a business, your one practice is one outreach message or one offer refinement. If you're an athlete, your one practice is technique drilling for 10 minutes. If you want confidence socially, your one practice is one intentional conversation where you practice eye contact and calm breathing. If your problem is procrastination, your one practice is starting the task for 5 minutes, no commitment beyond starting. This is Musashi's genius translated into your life, a daily minimum that protects the core, not a routine that collapses when life gets messy, a core that survives mess. Musashi didn't need the feel-like training. Training was who he was, but he didn't get that identity by repeating affirmations. He got it by repeating actions. And the reason this changes everything is simple. Repetition creates inevitability. You stop asking, "Will I do it today?" and you start asking, "How will I do it today?" That shift sounds small. It's not. It's the difference between a person who negotiates with themselves and a person who commands themselves and commands themselves. Now, I want to show you the deeper layer why this one practice creates a warrior mind. When you do a fundamental daily, you confront 3 enemies. The first enemy is boredom. Boredom is the mind begging for stimulation because it can't tolerate stillness. If you can train through boredom, you can work without needing entertainment. The second enemy is impatience. Impatience, if the mind demanding results before it has earned them. If you can train through impatience, you can stay on a path long enough to become dangerous. The third enemy is ego. Ego is the part of you that wants to be seen as competent without passing through incompetence. If you can train through ego, you can become a real student again. This is why Musashi's fundamentals weren't a warm-up. They were a daily destruction of weakness. Now let's give Yuki a moment of truth. Yuki tries suburi for 3 days. He feels strong. Day 4, he's tired. Day 5, life gets loud. Day 6, he misses. And instantly his mind says, "See, you can't do it. You're not disciplined. This isn't for you." That voice is the real opponent. And Musashi would tell him, your opponent is not fatigue. It is the story you tell yourself about fatigue. So here's the system Musashi would demand you follow: simple enough to obey, strict enough to reshape you. You choose your one practice and you tie it to a trigger you already can't avoid. When you finish brushing your teeth, when you make your morning coffee, when you shut your laptop at night, when you return home, then you make it measurable. A count, a time, a small number, not vague, not work on it, specific. Then you make it non-negotiable. You're allowed to do more. You're not allowed to do less. And here's the part that separates fantasy from reality. You create a rule for missed days. Not guilt, not shame. A rule. If you miss one day, you do it the next day, plus a small penalty, like an extra minute, an extra rep, an extra page. Not to punish yourself, but to teach your nervous system that skipping is expensive. Because right now, skipping is cheap for you. That's why you keep skipping. Now, I want to correct a common misunderstanding about Musashi. People think he was simply a violent man who won fights. But even in the writings associated with his strategic thinking, the theme is clear. The way is in training. The way is not in talk, not in theory, not in aesthetics. It is in repetition that refines perception. When you repeat a fundamental, you begin to notice micro errors, your posture, your timing, your tension, your breathing, the small flaws that never show up when you only practice occasionally. This is how masters separate themselves from amateurs, not by doing different things, but by seeing more inside the same thing. This is also why the one practice changed everything. Because it changed Musashi's eyes. It changed the quality of his attention. And attention is what wins long before the weapon moves. Now, let's talk about mistakes because you will sabotage this if you don't recognize the traps. First mistake, you pick a one practice that's too big. Your ego loves big commitments because it feels heroic. But heroic plans collapse. Musashi didn't build consistency by betting on heroism. He built it by betting on inevitability. If you choose 60 minutes a day, you will eventually lose. Choose 5 to 15 minutes. Make it sharp. Make it daily. Second mistake, you skip because you missed the perfect time. That's a child's mindset. The practice exists to train you in imperfect conditions. If you're traveling, you do a smaller version. If you're sick, you do the gentlest version. If you're busy, you do the minimum version. The identity is maintained by showing up, not by impressing yourself. Third mistake, you change the practice too often. This is the addiction to novelty. You don't need a new plan. You need deeper reps. Keep the same fundamental for 30 days. Let it get boring. Let it become part of your day. That's when it starts working. Fourth mistake, you treat it like a self-esteem test. You miss a day, and you declare yourself a failure. That's not discipline, that's drama. Discipline is logistical. If you miss, you return, quietly, immediately. Now I'll give you the final piece, the part Musashi would consider non-negotiable. Your one practice must be done with full presence for at least the first minute, not half listening, not scrolling, not rushing. 1 minute of complete attention. This is where the philosophy becomes self-improvement in the truest way. Because what you're really training is not the skill. You're training the ability to place your mind where you decide. That's freedom. And this is where Yuki finally changes. He realizes the practice isn't a task. It's a vote. A vote for the person he is becoming. Every day he does it, even small, he votes, I am the kind of person who trains. Every day he skips, he votes, I am the kind of person who negotiates. You can't vote both ways and expect a clear identity. So here's your challenge. It's specific, it's simple, it's sharp. For the next 14 days, choose your one practice and do it daily. Same trigger, same minimum, no 0 days. Write it down right now in one sentence. After I do X, I will do Y for Z minutes or reps. Then, and this matters, you will keep a visible streak on paper, on a calendar, anywhere you can't ignore. Because what gets measured gets repeated. Your action step is this. Before you sleep tonight, decide your one practice and your trigger. Then place whatever you need in plain sight: your notebook, your shoes, your instrument, your study page. Remove friction. Make the first step stupidly easy. And at the end of these 14 days, I want you to answer one question in the comments honestly. What one practice did you choose, and what excuse did your mind try to use to make you skip it?